Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another channel map video. This time we're talking about April. Currently it is the 12th of April, so I'm a couple of days late on this particular update. That being said, it is still a reasonable time, I guess, to, better late than ever, as they say. We're going to talk a little bit about March in retrospect and then jump into the plans for the rest of the month. And I guess I'll give you a bit of a status update on how some of this stuff is coming together as far as our plans go, since we are a couple of weeks in almost to the month itself. So again, starting with March's recap, I did want to continue working on Hydra. Obviously, I wanted to work on scenarios and a little bit of the mod and stuff. That's what we ended up doing. Of course, that bled into the early stages of April as well, and we even started a new scenario recently with the idea that we'll revisit the desert map that we had started a little while ago, the codename Heat Death. That one will be targeted once we get some AI updates, which are on hold until we get some stability fixes and some limit extensions and all of those things that we need for other content before we hit some of those, I guess you could call them, lower priority changes. So that has continued. Obviously, we did do some Hydra AI changes. We continued working on this mammoth April, hopefully due this month anyway, patch that changes a huge amount of stuff, refactors a ton of code, fixes a ton of bugs, and in theory won't introduce more bugs and won't introduce more instability. Currently it does, and we're working on that, and that's why it hasn't been shipped. But aside from that, we're mostly game to continue development, and you've been following that on the channel, you've been following that in the Discord server, so in theory you already know all about that. But the bulk of it has been related to the mod lately, and more recently, I would say, I've started to focus a little bit more heavily on scenario development. Of course, in the month of March, we did the Let's Play of BioShock Infinite. The review has not yet released, but will sometime this month, and that will give us some closure on that and allow us to move on to another Let's Play that I'll talk about in the future of this video. And on the other channel, the Semi-Pronogo channel, we obviously have kicked back off the Semi-Pro series with interviews. We interviewed Dweg and Frankie. We had plenty of episodes of Elo Heaven, including an April Fool's edition. And we, of course, did some casting, which wasn't strictly on that channel, but it was related to the whole CSGO side of things, where I did some casting for the European Development Championship and the Venn Invitational, a Blast Pro Series qualifier. Or I guess they're not Pro Series, Blast Premier qualifier. It would help if I could get my potential employer's name right, but whatever. Aside from that, obviously, we can start talking about the plans and how they've shaped up so far in the month of April and where I want to go with the rest of the month. So obviously, the large-scale scenarios like the proposed Nemesis map and even in some ways Heat Death in terms of what it requires is kind of larger scale in terms of what needs to be done technically before that map can be put together properly. That sort of stuff is on halt, and I'm going to be working on smaller projects that are less technically demanding until we get those stability fixes and until we get those limit extensions and the technical tools that are necessary for me to further explore some more large scope things, shall we say. I've also been hard at work on updating the mod and getting all of that stuff in. I touched on that in the recap. So that has continued to go on, and hopefully, as I said earlier, we can get that patch out before the end of this month. Aside from that, there is still RTS engine development for Antikythera going on. Obviously, we need to pivot away from Go, unfortunately, because it looked like a really good candidate, but we can't find a scripting solution, so we won't be able to make use of it, and we will likely have to code in C-styled C++, taking advantage of a few of the features that the bloated cousin actually has, and otherwise pretending it's just the older one, the good one, the not shit one, and we will see how that development kind of takes us. So we first have to port the stuff, and obviously we have to make our entity component system, and we've got to figure out what limits of polymorphism and object-oriented programming in general that we want to even use. We will be having a data-oriented design approach. I'll at some point revise the Antikythera sheet that's on the Frauds Club webpage to have the most up-to-date information, and probably release a dad call along with it once Vik and I sit down and have a little bit of a longer conversation about what all is going on there. Aside from that, the mapping tutorial series is continuing in development, and we should have the first episode of that out in probably, I would say, the next couple of days, actually, according from the recording date of this video, so certainly before the end of the month. At the same time, I would like to charge on forward and hopefully get out another episode of it in the same month, which sounds audacious since it's taken me so long just to make the first episode, but I feel like the floodgates are going to open up because I don't have to set the stage and give everybody the the lowdown and all of the information basically front loaded, essentially, is how I've chosen to go about it. So I have to plan my course of attack a little bit differently for the first video than I do for any of the subsequent ones. So the pilot is certainly the most important. Once we get that out there, we should be able to march ahead and make some more melee maps, make some more maps in general, which obviously I've been keeping sharp on, especially lately. So that has come and progressed well, so we'll have to wait and see what the reception is like and how people find it useful or whatever. And aside from that, I want to explore the setting that I've been developing for the Hydra campaign. Obviously, I haven't started properly developing campaign missions. More so, I've just been, making scenarios using some of these factions and stuff. And this is kind of a writer's exercise in a way, where I'm trying to leverage the different forces and see how they play out. And it will allow me to maybe make up some quick mapcraft style characters and scenarios that will allow me to vet the strength, conceptually speaking, of some of these factions and how they can fit together and how they can interact. And maybe I'll have some misfires here and there, but the point is that eventually I'll get to the point where it's looking pretty good, looking pretty solid, and we can comfortably move forward with the campaign planning itself. I won't, we're sort of insulated and safeguarded against any would-be mishaps in that sense, where, oh yeah, well, actually this just doesn't land, this doesn't make any sense, this feels conceptually off. I'll hopefully run the setting through its paces with some of these one-off scenarios, and at the same time make some compelling content that people can enjoy, even if it isn't a campaign in that sense. It's just like a scenario map set or whatever. So we'll see how that shapes up, and you can of course keep your eyes peeled on additional content as time goes on. I'll say aside from that, we do have some channel plans for this channel that aren't related to RTS content as usual. I do want to do some more AI castovers. I've been saying that for a couple months now, but we are still pending those stability fixes. Hopefully that is something that can continue this month. And aside from that, I did mention the mapping tutorials series. Obviously, I do want to do the 1v1 melee map video, which is the intro, the initial episode, the pilot. And then I would like to do a 2v2 map, which obviously means that we have a 2v2 map in the pool from the response of the result of the video being created. But also we have a second episode. So yeah, ideally that would come out as well. And then we can start to think about working on the next couple of phases or the next couple of videos in that series. Aside from that, the BioShock Infinite review is a no-brainer, and then we should be able to start on the Doom 2016 playthrough, which I'm sure many people are excited for. I still have to decide if I want to play Doom 3 first, even though it has no bearing on Doom 2016. It is a completely different genre. It might be entertaining to do that. So I'll probably throw up a poll a little bit later once the BioShock Infinite review is actually done. And then I can just say, should I start with Doom 3 or Doom 2016? Because Doom 2016 did win the poll, so it would feel weird to shirk that and then play the third game instead. Whatever, though, we'll find out, won't we? Over on the other channel, the plans are to continue Elo Heaven, to continue doing some occasional casting, and to continue with the Semi-Pro interview series. All, of course, pending on guests and events, but seems like it's rolling through pretty well, and Elo Heaven itself has been quite stable, quite steady, so I'm happy about that, and we're actually looking to secure some sponsorships and such, where we'll actually be able to use whatever is sponsoring us on broadcast to improve the broadcast, which we'll just have more on that if it develops, I guess. And aside from that, I still want to start my own solo content series, but frankly, haven't had the time, been focused on so many other things. And when I do want to sit down and make some solo content for that channel, it's usually a map analysis video. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see how that one plays out. Now, for the future, obviously, I still want to continue the mapping tutorial series, and I'm going to continue the Let's Plays, but I think we'll just wait and see how this one plans out, because not only do I have some casting up and coming in the early days of March, or May, rather, I will be casting the semifinals and grand final of the European Development Championship Season 3, so those playoffs will be taken care of by none other than yours truly, as well as Squid, of course, my homie, and we obviously have to figure out what we're doing after that, if that's something we can parlay into additional content and all that. So yeah, there's some other casting opportunities that have made manifest since then, but we're mostly just playing it by ear for now, and we are going to see where that goes, and that obviously dictates what else I can do with my time, so we shall see. That being said, that was the channel map. Of course, it's not normally this late into the month. That will almost certainly change back to the normal regularly scheduled programming once we hit the next month. So stay tuned for that, and yeah, bye.